Welcome to Midlife Initiation. I'm David Evans. Yes, I'm back in my car. Basketball training is back on, and again, I'm not allowed to come in for some reason. My son loves me to come and see the games, but he doesn't want me to come and see practice. Okay, we'll see what happens when he turns 13. So, today, we are going to talk about another mask of superiority from my book. Again, an excerpt from my book, Midlife Initiation, Six Masks of Separation, Six Paths to Freedom. This chapter is called The Genius Controls Reality. And the genius is perhaps the most subtle form of suffering uh, that we experience as humans. So here we go. This is the genius fable told by Jonas. When I was 6 months old, I could count. I don't mean babble. I mean count. 1, 2, 3, 18, 19, 20. My parents caught it on Betamax. Within a week, all the neighborhood kids were coming over to watch the baby who could count. They'd cheer me on like I was a star performer in a Broadway show. My mom beamed. She'd always wanted to prove that her genes were premium. My dad proudly crowed, "That's my boy." His son was going to be somebody. I didn't understand what was happening, but I'm certain I felt the spotlight and I liked it. That attention was the seed that nurtured my identity. Early genius is a double-edged sword. It separates you from the pack, and it keeps you separated from the pack. By the time I was in school, I felt different from the other kids. I didn't get their games, their humor, their chaos. I connected more with my teachers, adults who appreciated how quickly I learned, how seriously I took everything. I was the teacher's pet, always the first to raise my hand, always the one with the right answer, and I got teased for it a lot. So I stopped trying to belong. I stayed close to the places where my intelligence was praised. Math competitions, chess tournaments, computer club. My life became a cocoon of correctness. I avoided dances, sleepovers, group projects, any space where emotional or physical prowess, not cognitive horsepower, were the currency. MIT was my natural habitat. There I wasn't just smart, I was one of the best. I graduated early, started my first company at 22, building ambient emotion recognition software. The tech was groundbreaking, but the company didn't scale. I couldn't lead, couldn't trust anyone else's ideas, not even my own. I was stuck in analysis paralysis. I was the bottleneck. My second startup was better, acquired for the IP by a major wearables company. Still, it was the same pattern. Brilliant technology, but a culture that orbited around me. No room for other stars. I told myself, that's the price of genius. Then came company number three, CareSynth, emotionally intelligent AI for aged care. It mapped subtle shifts in vocal tone and facial expression to predict changes in mood, cognition, and pain. It worked. It really worked. And people cared. But I couldn't get out of my own way. I micromanaged, corrected engineers on whiteboard syntax, rewrote product mode roadmaps solo at 3 a.m. Investors started pushing back. My co-founder threatened to leave. Eventually, the board made the call. They installed a new CEO, someone who could build a team, not just a tech stack. CareSynth scaled under her leadership. Massive exit, millions of lives improved. And me? I walked away rich, respected, and lost. through all of it, there was Ava. We met at a university coding competition, which she was being paid to run. Ava was studying fine arts at the time. We were oil and water. She'd spent hours in the studio sculpting, hands caked in clay, shaping something without any plan. I'd ask what it was, and she'd say, I don't know yet. It drove me nuts. It also mesmerized me. Ava loved me even when I didn't make sense, even when I couldn't name a single feeling I was having. I buffered everything with performative mental gymnastics, especially my need to be loved. If only I could be the smartest person in the room, then maybe I'd be worthy. I never said that aloud, but it lived inside every snide correction, every condescending actually, every time I retreated into facts when feelings came too close. The rupture came slowly at first, then all at once. She'd talk, I'd analyze. She'd cry, I'd offer an insight. She'd reach for me, and I'd stay trapped in my head. One night, after a gallery opening, she said, You're brilliant, Jonas, but I don't think you see me. Not really. Not like I see you. And Ava walked away. To be continued. Debriefing the genius. The genius mask is worn as a superiority complex of the head, an over-identification with intellect mastery and the belief that clarity and control can come from understanding more than from experiencing. For those of us shaped by this mask, thinking feels like the safest way to be in the world. It becomes a shield, a way to stay above the mess, the emotion, the uncertainty of direct contact with life. What of yourself do you see in Jonas's story? Have you ever used intellect to manage intimacy? Have you felt most alive, not when connected, but when correct? I certainly have. When I signed that nine-figure deal to sell my music technology company, I was running to the top of a mountain yelling, I was right! And I was that counting baby. Like Jonas, my identity was forged early, adored for being exceptionally bright. But like Jonas, that spotlight became my sense of separation. I learned to shine by performing instead of by relating. Like many wearing the genius mask, Jonas and I connected more with teachers than peers, more with ideas than people. Social situations that didn't reward intellect felt unsafe or irrelevant. The body was something to optimize. Emotions was something to categorize. I was a head on a stick, energy stuck, spinning rapidly in the verbal mind. My eyes flicked a lot, scanning for new data. My obsessive awareness of my mental processing disconnected me from my physicality and emotional presence. I prided myself on sharp, articulate speech. I was always a passionate person, but it was a passion for being right, teaching, mansplaining, always above the experience, never in it. The genius ego structure builds intellectual walls to protect from emotional vulnerability, ignoring the heart's little brain, which plays a crucial role in emotional processing and connection. When the heart beats in rhythmic patterns or heart coherence, it calms the brain's anxiety centers and stimulates what Barbara Friedrichsen calls our broaden and build mode. On the genius path, this coherence might be disrupted, and your avoidance of feelings leads to loneliness. Like Jonas, in genius mode, you can get trapped in analysis paralysis, needing to dissect and understand everything before acting. This can be seen as a disconnect from the gut brain. When you're stuck in your head, you ignore the gut's 500 million neurons and the critical data they send to your head brain. This disconnect can lead to anxiety as you suppress the intuitive gut feelings that might offer you guidance. At its core, this ego tunnel distorts your natural ability to see clearly. Instead of presence, the genius clings to the idea that if I can just figure it all out, I'll be safe. If I can name it, I won't have to feel it. If I can model it, I won't be surprised. Control becomes the currency, and knowledge the way it's earned. If you're stuck in this pattern, you often buffer discomfort with analysis. You ask questions not from relational curiosity, but from a compulsion to understand before you act. The world becomes a system to decode, not a field to feel. And relationships? They're modeled, abstracted, understood more through cognitive theory than human messiness. Like Jonas and I, you might have built your life around correctness, around being sharp, articulate, even dazzling. But when connection gets too close, you pull back. You explain instead of express. You narrate instead of surrender. You analyze love instead of letting it touch you. Sex, too, may be curated and commented on, a narrative performance running through your head rather than physical and emotional presence. Imagine what sex might be like if you could fully feel it, emotionally and physically. Instead, pleasure is processed intellectually. Emotional vulnerability is avoided. You, like me, may even take pride in your intellectual insight, missing how it keeps you distant. This is the epitome of the split brain research discussed earlier in the book, the left brain confabulating what the right brain has experienced. Impulse research has shown that our linguistic thoughts are mostly confabulated after the fact of experience, sometimes seconds after the fact. Your mind's talk track often has little to do with why you're behaving the way you are or taking the actions you're taking. This distortion shows up in leadership too. Jonas's early startups were brilliant but brittle. He couldn't scale because he couldn't trust others. His identity was too bound up in being the smartest person in the room. Sound familiar? Does to me. This path loves critique more than creation. It's safer to explain a sculpture than to sculpt, safer to read about love than risk feeling unworthy in it. Even healing can become cerebral. Western talk therapy, philosophical concepts, insight without embodiment. But insight doesn't equal integration. You can explain your trauma perfectly and still repeat its patterns. You can teach somatics without feeling your own body. You can quote Rumi and still run from love. You might become aware of your genius mask by how you move. Are you a bit awkward or stiff, not fully grounded in the body? Movement can feel mechanical, almost like your body is just a transport system for your brain. Here's looking at you, Mark Zuckerberg. The body is often an afterthought, managed with optimization, vitamins, numbers, macros, calories in, calories out. The genius path, when distorted, seeks shortcuts to wisdom, like Neo in the Matrix downloading Kung Fu instead of practicing it. There's a deep attachment to the idea that knowing is doing, that if you understand the mechanics of something, you've mastered it. This shows up everywhere, from people mistaking book learning for embodied wisdom to treating spiritual practice like a quiz where the right answers get you enlightened. But insight alone doesn't heal. Thinking through the pain isn't the same as metabolizing it. You can explain your childhood perfectly and still be stuck. You can quote your favorite philosopher and still not experience the freedom of their words. This book and the map of ego structures contained within it could be me in genius mode. If I were attached to the explanations in this book as the capital T truth and not simply a useful tool. Classical Tantra teacher Christopher Harish Wallace says, thoughts are tools, not truths. However, the genius ego structure sees the verbal mind taking over as the lens for everything. This is living through ideas of the world instead of through your direct experience of it. Intimacy is buffered with thought. Feeling is replaced with analysis. Knowing substitutes for being. The idea of reality takes priority over reality itself. The event is recorded, posted, analyzed, but rarely inhabited. The genius can explain life in perfect logical sentences, but not feel it. It's all future oriented too. What's next? How to improve? How to optimize? How to win? The present is just a staging ground for the future built in the head. This was my mind quite recently when I went back into the product leadership role. It was the root of my suffering, which then precipitated my descent from genius mode through God and hero sliding into victim mode. It may even be the core of the suffering that is the human condition. It's certainly a seed or start of the slide into all the other patterns. More to come on this next as we move to the 3 masks of inferiority.